reminding that. So I really appreciate that. So please tell me if you are able to see my screen, guys. Are you able to see my screen? Oh, no, no. Okay, okay. So let me share the screen. So I hope you are able to see the screen now. The session is also getting recorded. Please let me know if you are able to see the screen. Wonderful. Okay. So as usual, as we do every day, so we will have a quick recap as to what we have discussed. So whoever is joining today for the first time, okay, the first half an hour you will find it difficult because it's a continuation of the previous class. So all the new students, Shravani, Kausalya and Shiva, so if you have joined, please call me after the class. Okay, this is my phone number with which you will be able to call. Okay, so this is for all the new students. Okay, so whoever have joined today, so so just please call me back after the class so to discuss further and what we can do. So you can use the chat window. Whoever have joined today new, you can use the chat window to communicate with you. You can find the chat window on the GoToMeeting. So all the other students are also putting the chat. You can look at the chat. Okay, okay, wonderful, Shravani, you have figured it out. Okay, good. Recap. So the recap, as usual, as every day, please come out with some points that we have discussed yesterday, guys. Anything that you could remember from yesterday? Wonderful. Protocol. Okay. So we have started discussing about protocol. The protocol is nothing but set of rules. What is protocol? Set of rules. Okay, so every activity that you do in your life, you follow certain set of rules. Sometimes it is defined by another entity like a company. Sometimes it's sometimes it's self-driven, the rules. But here protocols, the set of rules needs to be followed so that the client and server can communicate with each other. Okay, so instead of saying only client and server, I would say two different entities. Okay, two different entities. Okay, because sometimes some communication needs to be done from one server to other server as well. So it's better, I would call this as two different entities. Okay, now so pardon me for all the spelling mistakes, guys. So it's better I use the word so that automatically the spell check will be done and it takes care of any issues. Yeah. Okay. So client and server can communicate with each other. So in that process, we have discussed certain set of rules for HTTP protocol as well. And also we have discussed that we have different protocols. There are lots of protocols. Okay. So lots of protocols available in the market. So like, HTTP, HTTPS, FTP, okay, SNMP, okay, like this, there are a lot of protocols which are there, okay, which the architect would decide during his defining the architecture of the application. He will also decide which protocol to select for your application. Now you got into the project, how do you know which protocol your project is having? Okay, how do you know which protocol your project is following? As I've told you before, if you wanted to look at the architecture of the application, there is a document called technical design document. Okay, this is something which we have discussed in response to one of the questions I think Melly has asked or Shraddha has asked. So I have told as a part of that. So it's a technical design document that you can request once you get into the project. That's where the architecture of your application, okay, is available. Typically, This is what happens in the company. But if it's available in some other document, so you can request for that document. Okay. Okay. So this is what it is. So this is how far we have discussed yesterday, guys. So this is the recap. Now we'll continue, but as I promised yesterday, first we will go through an architecture which is more like a real life, and it is architecture of my application in one of the projects that I have done few years back. Okay, so I came out with everything which is possible, right from the machine name to the servers, to web app server, everything. So I'll discuss about that architecture for 10 to 15 minutes. So in case in your interviews, if they ask you what is your architecture, this is exactly what you can say. Okay. So since you're attending online, you can take the screenshots of this. So I wouldn't mind if you take the screenshot of this particular slide. Okay. Or I'll send this slide across to you guys just as a part of class running notes. What I will do is I'll send the screenshot so that you will have it forever. Okay. Now let's look at this architecture, guys. Somebody who's new, it will find it a little difficult, guys. So just ignore it, because after the class I'll speak to you to see what needs to be done. But somebody who has been attending my classes, this is a piece of cake for you. So there are two web app servers. It's a very, very, very simple architecture. Two web app servers. Since you have two web app servers, okay, you have a load balancer here, and there is only one database server, and there is one database server, and you have the client here, and in the real time you have multiple clients who will be continuously or concurrently sending the request. Now let's see what is this. So before understanding this, okay, let me ask you simple question. What is your laptop? If you bought a laptop or a desktop, from which company is it? Can somebody tell me which company is your laptop? I want to hear this quickly. Okay, Lenovo. Wonderful. Okay, so what is the processor? Quickly. Okay, i7. Let me go with the i7. Okay, that's the latest one. Your memory. When I said memory, always remember memory, we are referring to only RAM. There are different kinds of memory. There is a cache memory. There is a hard disk. Hard disk, usually in India it's called memory for some other reason, but in the other countries it's called just disk. Okay, so whenever somebody is calling about RAM, memory, we are just talking about RAM. Okay, so 8 GB, some of them have 16 GB, wonderful. Okay, so that's your memory. Okay, so I've picked up, this is your processor, and there will be a disk as well, which disk usually doesn't impact performance a lot. I mean, the size of the disk, I'm saying. Okay, the disk itself will impact the performance, but the size of the disk usually will not impact. So let's not go. So for my company, so for your laptop it is Lenovo. The servers, usually these companies like Dell, okay, Samsung, or Lenovo or Vaio or whatever you have, Sony, okay, these companies, I don't know if they generate the servers, but usually Sunfire is the popular one. Okay, for your laptops, Dell is the popular one. Here, usually for the servers, Sunfire is one of the popular ones. So in my project, we have used Sunfire. Okay, even Dell, there is a model, right? You said Lenovo, there will be a model. Dell, there will be a model. So in Sunfire, 490 is the V490 was the model. Okay, so every laptop has a model, right? You believe there is a model, so, right? So similarly, our Sunfire server has a model as well. So instead of Dell, I have Sunfire. Now, the processor, you said you have i3, i5, i7. So this is the processors that you have on your laptops and desktops. But on the servers, this is the processor you usually have. Okay, so 2x ultra space, 4x ultra space, and maybe Xeon. So these are the processors you have. But for your laptop, desktops, this is the processor you have. And for you, 8 GB, 16 GB is way, way high. but servers 32 GB is very, very common. Okay, and by the way, that's a max server. Okay, so that's a max processor that, for my company, that's how it was. Instead of saying max processor, I'll just say processor and memory, because you might get confused. Okay, so this is what it is. And what is the operating system that you have on your desktop, guys? Quickly tell me. OS. Wonderful. So you have Windows. I'm sure it is 7 or 8 or 10, one of them. Okay, so for my servers it was Solaris 9, and it's popular, guys. Remember, Solaris is popular. I think Sun, right now it's Oracle. Sun is acquired by Oracle. I think they have a tie-up or something with Solaris, because I see whenever they go with Sunfire, they have, it's usually Solaris. So whenever you go for Dell, right, it's usually Windows 7 or 8 or 10. Typically, similarly, if they go with Sunfire, it is typically Solaris 9. So far it is clear, guys. These are the specs of my hardware. So Kumar, you have 3 hardwares here. So web app server 1, web app server 2, database server. So for all the 3 of them, it's the same. Yes, for all the 3 of them, it is the same, except that in my project, these 2 had 16 GB memory and these had 32 GB memory. That's the only difference. But you could have 32 GB memory on this ones as well. But that's how my architecture was. This one is 16 GB memory, this one is 16 GB memory, and this is 32 GB memory. But everything else is same. The processor is same, the OS is same, and the company from which we have bought the servers, they are same. They are all Sunfire servers. Okay. Now this is related to the host. So this information is related to what? Host. Yesterday we have discussed what is the host, right? The machine on which the servers have been hosted. Okay, so if this web app server is installed on your laptop becomes the host. So but instead of laptop, they decided to buy this and they have installed your web app servers on this. So this is your host machine. So this is the specs of the host machine. Are we clear so far, guys? Are we clear? Are we clear, everybody? Can I proceed further? Okay, so in the interview, if they ask you what is the architecture, you talk about the whole of the architecture, and when they say the specs, you can talk about the specs. Okay, so now they took this host machine and installed WebLogic 11G-R1. 11G-R1 is what? The version 11G-R1. So they took this host machine, okay, which is Sunfire 4 V490, with this processor, with this memory, and with this OS, and they have installed this WebLogic on this particular host machine. So they install this software called WebLogic 11G-R1. The version is what? 11G-R1. Now this has become my web app server. Similarly, they took another host machine with these specs and they installed the software called WebLogic LG-R1 again. So again, this has become a web app server 1. So they took the host machine, they installed the softwares and all that. So wonderful. Now you have 2 web app servers and there is a load balancer. And they took the same host machine, but this time around they installed Oracle 10G enterprise software on that. Okay, make sure you remember those versions, guys. If you're speaking in the interviews, they expect the versions as well. So please look into the versions. Okay, so now this has become the database server. Now my developer has developed the piece of code on which Java version? Java 6 and Java EE Enterprise, Java Enterprise, which version? 5 version. So they developed the code using these versions and that code can be deployed on this web app servers. Okay, if the Java is developed with any higher versions, Java 7 is available, Java 8 is also available. If they have developed the code on higher versions, then this becomes incompatible. We have to go with the higher version of WebLogic in that case. But this version of WebLogic, it supports only Java 6 and Java EE 5. If you have developed your piece of code with the higher versions of Java and Java EE, then it will not be compatible with this particular web app server. So remember these versions as well. So this is what is the architecture for my application some time back. So you can certainly use the same one and I will send you this picture as well. Please send out a reminder. Please send out a reminder in the mail, guys. Or you can put that in the chat window that we are having, I mean the group this thing. but I would prefer the email. So is this clear, guys? Shraddha, I know you have a question, but others. I'll take that question, Shraddha. Just hang on. So others, is it clear, guys? Is it clear? Everybody? Okay. So in case you are attending the interviews, you can use this architecture with the exact same versions of the hardware, the web server versions, the database server versions, and also the versions of the Java. Okay. Yeah, I'll certainly send it. Shraddha, now you can go ahead and ask the question, please.
Sir, yesterday you told us that host is what where softwares are installed,
Yes.
and somewhere I got this line. Guest is guest is usually distributed across multiple hosts for load balancing. So I didn't get that. So this
Guest,
is what physical
I
machine
don't
or
know,
what?
Shraddha, there is a word called guest. So far, I haven't heard the word called guest in the architecture, to be honest. Okay.
No, yesterday you told us guest machine and host machine.
No, 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 no. I only spoke about the host machine. Just to tell you what is the
Okay.
host, I told you if somebody arrives at your home, they are your guest and you are the host. So I was
Okay, okay,
telling
okay, fine.
you, some people will have why we are calling this as a host, right? So I was telling like what is host? Host is somewhere like somebody comes to your house, you become the host. Here also, another software is getting installed on this. That's the reason why we are calling it. Okay, but there is nothing called
Okay, fine.
information. Sorry if I have
Okay.
confused you, and others also. I'm sorry if I got you confused. I was just trying to explain the same concept in an easier way, saying that if somebody comes to your house, they become guest and you become the host. Here also, somebody like another software is being installed on this. So that's the reason why we are calling this as a host. That's what I was telling. Is it clear, Shreya?
Yeah, now it's clear.
Okay, okay. Sometimes the extra information will confuse you. Okay, so I have to refrain from giving that extra things. Okay. So, anyways, since you brought it up, it's nice, Shraddha. Others also, if there is a confusion or probably if unintentionally, if I would have said it, I apologize for that. So, yeah. But that's not what I meant. I was only trying to explain what is the host because certain people they might not know or they cannot relate it. They might be wondering as to why we are calling this as a host machine. So that's the reason why I was trying to explain this a little better. Okay.
Yeah, now it's fine.
So now, guys, now what is performance testing? Okay, so after 5 days we are formally defining what is performance testing. Okay, now all the new students should be able to understand from this point on. Okay, from this point on, because this is completely new chapter. So what is performance testing? We already know how to do performance testing, what is performance testing, but let's formally define this. As I've told you, performance testing means PT. Okay, going forward, I will use the term called PT. So if you get into the projects also, people will use the term called PT all the time. Performance testing is testing the application. Okay, any testing is testing the application. You are doing a system testing or system integration testing or user acceptance testing, security testing, compatibility testing. Say every testing is testing an application under test. Okay, but we are testing the application for what? For speed. Lot of people will be under the impression that performance testing is only testing for speed, okay, because that's what people care for. But maybe at the starting this only testing for speed would have been an appropriate appropriate definition. But over a period of time, okay, only testing for the speed is not good enough is what people realized that only testing for the speed is not good enough. Okay, then they have changed the definition of performance testing. Now performance testing is not just testing for speed, but testing for stability and testing for scalability as well. I'll clearly discuss these terms. Don't get overwhelmed. Okay, so by looking at this, I mean, the meaning of those terms, but how it is related to performance testing, I'll clearly explain that to you. Okay, Performance testing is testing an application for speed, stability, and scalability in what? In production-like environments, not in any environment. Okay, not in any environment. Again, I'll spend certain bit of time on the production-like environment as well. So I think two days back or 3 days back, somebody has asked a question on this. So now it will be clear for them. Okay, under real user load or virtual user load, performance testing is never done, typically never done with the real user load. Typically it will be done with the virtual user load. Okay, so to meet what? To meet what? Not requirements, but to meet non-functional requirements. To meet what? To meet non-functional requirements. Okay, so any requirement is done to meet the requirements. Again, sorry, any testing is done to meet the requirements, guys. But here the testing is done to meet the non-functional requirements. Again, we'll spend maybe at least 1 or 2 days to understand what are NFRs, okay, or non-functional requirements. Okay, now first we will understand these 3 terms: speed, stability, and scalability. Okay, so now, okay, first let's look at testing for the speed. Testing for the speed. Okay, so we'll go back to Mark as always. Whenever there is an analogy, whenever we have to explain a concept, we always fall back on the Mark. So let's go to Mark. Now he bought a new Audi car. Let's say it's an Audi car, or he wants to buy a new Audi car because he became a minister. You remember yesterday he became a minister. So now hence he is testing the car to make sure if it meets his requirements. Okay, so his requirements is it has to carry all the people in the family. Okay, and also it has to drive fastly. So how many people he has in the family? He has 5 people. Okay, so maybe his parents, maybe his wife and other guys. So there are totally 5 members including him. So he wants to buy a car. So he's going for what? A test drive. A test drive just to make sure his car meets his requirements. So now what is he testing? He's testing for the speed. He's testing for the speed. So how long he is going for a drive? He's going for a 1 hour drive. Okay, with all the 5 people. So now all the 5 people get into the car. Okay, now what is the current peak load? We already understood the peak load, right? Whatever the load that is experienced during the peak hour, we have already spoken about it, about the peak hour. Okay, so now the current peak load is what? 5 people, because in the family there are only 5 people. So at any point of time the maximum load will be 5 people, but certain times it could be only 1 person, certain times it could be only 2 people, certain times it could be only 3 people, but the maximum peak load is 5. It will never go over 5. So what is the purpose of going for this 1 hour drive? He wanted to check if the car can drive fast enough or the speed is good or not. So he will go for a 1 hour drive. Okay, if he is happy, then he will go ahead and buy. He will go ahead and buy the car. So let's take the same analogy for our applications, guys. Let's take the same analogy for our application. In the previous case, for Mark, the current peak load is only 5. But let's assume for our application, the current peak load is 1000 users. 1000 users is not the overwhelming number, guys. Okay, the current peak load is 1000. I should have said concurrent users. Okay. Now he is testing the car. We are testing what? The Gmail. Gmail is our AUT. AUT means what? Yes, application under test. AUT what? Application under test. You can also call it as system under test. The application or the system that you are testing. The system that you are testing. And what is the current peak load? 1000 concurrent users, which means that 1000 users will be using the Gmail at the same point of time. 1000 users will be using the Gmail at the same point of time. But as I've told you, we will never have the 1000 real users test the application. We will never have the 1000 real users test the application. We will have the 1000 virtual users test the application. Where are these virtual users coming from? They are coming from the LoadRunner. They are coming from the LoadRunner. It gives out 1000 virtual users, and all the 1000 virtual users concurrently using the Gmail application. Thanks, Shraddha. So concurrently using the Gmail application. You see, while the load is being created, even in the Mark's case, he didn't go for the test drive with only 1 person. He went with the current load with all the 5 people, that too concurrently. He didn't took one person, after that one more person, after that one more person. No, all the 5 people were sitting in the car simultaneously, concurrently. Here also concurrent load with all the 1,000 users, not one after another. All the 1,000 users will be working on the Gmail application while the load is being applied with all these 1,000 concurrent users. You wanted to check if the application is fast enough. You wanted to check if the application is fast enough or the performance is good enough. You wanted to check if the application performance is good enough. So this is what is testing for speed, guys. This is what is testing for speed. Okay, I hope it is clear. I hope it is clear. So any questions you can raise at any point of time, guys. Only sometimes I will say, okay, do you have any questions, or I will request you if you have any questions. But other times, if you have any questions, put it in the chat window without any hesitation. So whenever I come to the logical conclusion of the topic, I'll certainly clear all your questions, guys. Okay. Now what is performance testing? Is not testing for speed. It is also what? Testing for stability. It is also what? Testing for stability. Wonderful. Now let's see what Mark has done. He didn't bought the car. Okay. He liked the speed, but he didn't bought the car. He said, I wanted to do one more test to the Audi guys. So Audi is an expensive car, right? It's, you have to do all the tests possible before you buy the car. Okay. So it's a luxury car. So is it, am I pronouncing it right? Is it Audi? AUDI Audi? Am I pronouncing it right? So guys, am I pronouncing it right? Yes. Okay. Somebody, I heard it's a German car and they pronounce it a little different. Okay. So yeah, it's an Audi. I hope I'm pronouncing it right. Okay. Anybody has an Audi car, guys, over here? Somebody from US? I love that car, the white car. Okay. Yeah. Well, let's go.
It's pronounced Audi
Audi.
in the US. Audi, yeah.
Audi. Okay. Audi. Okay. I'll try to pronounce that. I try to remember that and pronounce it. Audi. Yeah. It gives me that impression, like hola. If you go to a certain part of the country, what is that destination? What is that place? Anyways, okay. Yeah, Audi is fine. So let's call it as Audi. Let me try that. Okay. Yeah. So it's a car. Now he's testing for the stability. For the stability, he realized that he doesn't need all the 5 people. It need not have to be the peak load. So what did he do? He had only 4 people, or four of his family members, including himself, are going for the test drive. Okay. So now he is not going for 1 hour drive. He's going for a long drive. Long drive. He decided to go for what? 3 days. I do agree, in real world nobody will give you a car for 3 days for the test drive, but let's assume it's 3 days. Okay. Now he's not going with all of them, including himself. There are 4 people. So all the 4 people are sitting on the car, but going on a long drive for how many days? 3 days. Going for a long drive for how many days? 3 days. Okay. So you see, what is the point that you have to note? It is less than the current peak load. Okay. Because we are not testing for the speed with the maximum load. We are testing this. We are not testing the car for the peak load, for the maximum, for the speeds. Here we are testing for the stability. Is it stable? Okay, when you're going for the long drive, will the engine gets overheated, or will my tires go flat? So there will be some issues. Okay, he wants to check that. Okay. So you see, the car drives for long enough without decreasing the speeds. That is the intention. Now you see, that's my long drive. Okay, that's what I could do on the PPT. That's what I've done. Okay, so here also, it's same story. The application and the test is the Gmail. Okay, again you're doing the test with the same virtual users, but this time around you're doing the test with what? Not 1,000 users, but typically 70% of the peak load. 70% of the peak load is what standards I use, but that's not a industry standard. That's not on the rock. I mean, in the sense that's not something which is which is followed everywhere, but that's usually that is followed. I see some companies going with 50%. I see some clients going with 70%. So you can talk to your lead as to what it is, but I always go with 70% of the peak load. Okay, so here you're testing with the peak load and 700 concurrent users. Okay. Now you see application is applied load for a longer period of times, like what? 8 hours or 1 day or 3 days. Again, the time is also varying from project to project, client to client. I used to go in all the projects that I am involved. I always done this test. The test for what? Stability for 8 hours. But I have seen some of my colleagues, they do it for 1 day, and I haven't seen, but I have heard some people did it for 3 days as well. So it totally depends upon the client. But 8 hours is good enough. 8 hours is what? Good enough. Okay. Now, what is the intention, or when you're doing this test? What is this test? Test for stability. What should be there in your mind? Yeah, the speed should not be deteriorated. What should we see? The speed should not be deteriorated, or the performance should not be deteriorated. When you're doing the test, we really don't care about the other things, but the only thing that we care about is whenever we started the test in the first hour, whatever is the speed, in the last hour also, the speed should remain the speed. Same, if the speeds are deteriorating means the speeds are getting bad. If the speeds are getting bad, then definitely your application is not stable. In 8 hours, if the performance is deteriorated, let's say by 0.1 seconds, not 0.1 seconds, let's say 0.5 seconds, imagine what will happen in 1 day, imagine what will happen in 1 month, and imagine what will happen in 1 year. Okay, once the application is deployed, it is deployed unless a new version comes. Okay, so you do a test for 8 hours. In 8 hours, the performance is decreasing. So imagine what happens in 1 day or one year. Okay, so that's how you should look at. So far, any doubts, guys? Testing for speed I have discussed. Testing for stability we have discussed. Any doubts with our Audi or Audi car? Audi. Okay. Any questions? Please let me know, guys. If you're not comfortable with the speeds, please do let me know. Okay. I mean, not my speed, not the car speed. I can't do anything about the car, but you know, if my speed, I mean the speed with which I'm explaining, or the pace at with which I'm. So Phil, that's the first thing that we have done, right? Peak hour. So you see, this guy went for a peak hour with the peak load, current peak load. So that's what it is. Usually the load test is done with that. Is that okay? Wouldn't you want to test for peak load levels? That's what we were doing. When we do the load test, that's what it is. Okay? And people sometimes call this as a peak load test as well. But the only difference between load test, this is offline guys. So some of you might not understand. So Phil, this is my understanding. Only difference between load test and peak load test, as I understand, is peak load test is only for the online applications. But load test is only for online applications. But in our company, when we refer a word called peak load, we also include the batch jobs, offline jobs, and all that, and simultaneously we run. So that's the only difference. Otherwise, you know, there isn't much difference between load test and peak load test. So testing for scalability. Now, Mark realized that at some point of time he will have kids, so he is planning for the 3 kids. Now he doesn't want it to change the car when he has the kids. So once he buys the car, he wants to make sure that, you know, the car is good enough even for the future load. This will be the future load, right? So that's what is the scalability, the future growth or the future load. So what did he do? He had the neighbor's kids come over. Now he's going for the testing the car again. Okay, his neighbor kids came from school, so he has the neighbor kids come over. So he's planning to have 3 kids, so he has the neighbor kids, like 3 of them, to come over just to test the car. So now The test is not done with the current peak load, but test is done with the future load. So he has all the 8 people sit in the car, and now again he is going for the car. Again the intention is to what? To check if the car drives fast enough. The intention is what? The car drives fast enough, but not with the current peak load. He's doing it with the future load. He's doing with the future load. Okay? Similarly, okay? Now, please mute yourself, guys. Similarly, let's say the current peak load is 1000. Let's say the current peak load is 1000, but the future load, the load which is 3 months from now, or 6 months from now, or 1 year from now, let's say it is 1500. Again, who will tell you the future load? Will you guess, or somebody will give you this future load? Just give it a guess, guys, or I would want to hear. I didn't mention that in the class, but what do you think? Who will give you the future load? You can just guess it. I'll say, okay, I like the number 1500. Let me plug in that 1500. No, always it's a part of the requirements. It's a part of the NFRs, non-functional requirements. Okay, the client or the stakeholder or the business different people call them by different names. Some people call them as clients. Some people call them as business. Some people call them as stakeholders. Some people call them as business system analysis is a little different. Okay, so forget it. So different people, but definitely the client or the business owner is supposed to give this number as a part of what? As a part of what? NFRs. As a part of what? NFRs, non-functional requirements. Typically, they will give a requirement like this. Watch carefully. Okay, let's say the current peak load is 100 concurrent, 1000 concurrent users. So this is how an NFR for the scalability. This is how a scalability requirement looks like. Okay, NFR. Scalability NFR looks like. What is that? There is a 50% user. There is a 50% growth in the user load in the next 1 year. Okay, in the next 1 year. So this is how a scalability requirement would look like. Okay, this is how. Why does it come slow? Maybe. Okay, now it is good. Okay, scalability requirement, scalability. Okay, so there is a 50% growth in the user load, or they can also say 50% user load growth in the next 1 year. So 50% growth in the user load in the next 1 year. So if the current is 1000, what will be 1 year from now? 50% more. So 50% more is what? 1500 concurrent users. So that's how you calculate. Okay, they might say 70% or they might say 30% growth in the user load in the next 1 year. In that case, in the next 1 year, the peak load will become 1300. Okay, now since it is 1600. Okay, so in this case, let's say it is 1500. So now you don't test with 1000, but you test with 1500 application unit test. While the future load is being created, application performance should be fast enough. If the application performance is fast enough with the future load, then you can go to the client and say that the application is not only working fast now, but it will also work fast 1 year from now when your virtual users becomes, not virtual users, when your load becomes 1500. Load becomes 1500. Okay. So this is what testing for speeds, testing for scalability, and testing for stability. Is it clear, guys? Now 3 things in the definition. So Phil, we will take that question offline, okay? We'll take that question offline. So now, if you go back to the definition, as per the definition, what did I say? Performance testing is testing an application for speed, stability, scalability in production-like environment. In production-like environment. Let me explain what is production-like environment. Let's say that is your production environment. Let's say that is your production environment. Okay, what is the production environment is looking like? You have one web server, 2 app servers, and 1 database server with a load balancer. This is what is the production environment. So if somebody were wondering what is the production environment, you are accessing Facebook. Okay, so you're sending that request to the server, web server, then app server, database server, wherever this request is going to, that is there in the production environment. That is there in the production environment, which means that the real users are using it, and whatever the request these real users are sending to that environment is the production environment. Okay, by the way, what is the environment? The whole data center, you see, the whole thing, okay, is an environment. The whole thing, which includes the hardware, software, connections, everything, is an environment. Okay, so you will better understand the environment when I discuss about the different things, the different environments. Okay, now this is the production environment. Okay, but performance is done in the production environment? No, the performance testing is done in production like environment. The performance testing is done in the production like environment. Okay, so how can I explain this? Let me see. If somebody is completely new to IT, I wanted to explain this to them. Okay, what is the better way to explain this? Okay, so now I don't know if you have heard about this. Okay, I don't know if you have heard about this. When military, any country, military, when they are getting practiced, okay, while they are practicing, they will create a war zone similar to war. Okay, for training. I wouldn't say practice. Okay, for training. Okay, so to get to feel what it is like, you know, in the war zone, what they do as a part of the training, they create the whole environment which is more like a war zone. Okay, it could be done through screens, or you know, through the technology, or it could be done, you know, in a real manner, but they create that whole environment which is more like a real war zone, and they practice that, so they're creating an environment which is more like a war zone so that they can practice it. Why? Because when the real stuff happens, they are more prepared. When the real war happens, they are more prepared. So similarly, you know, this is the real world, or in which the real requests from the users go to. But when we wanted to do the testing, we cannot use this. This is just a test. Just for the testing purposes, we cannot use this. What they do, they create the similar environment with the same. You see, you have a web server here. You buy one more web server and you put it here. You have a load balancer. Again, you put the load balancer. You have two app servers, one database server. You purchase them and you put it. The connections also. However, whatever the connections that you have here, same connections you will put it over here. And whatever the data that you have, let's say you have 1 million records over here, you put the same 1 million records. Here you have used the WebLogic. Here also you install the WebLogic. Here you have used Oracle 10G. Here also you have to use Oracle 10G. Whatever the Java code that you have deployed over here, the same Java code you deploy over here. So whatever is your production environment wherein the real users are using it, the same thing you replicate over here. But this thing, it is only for performance testing. Nobody else will use this. This is just for the testing purposes. Just like our military has created the war zone which looks like the real war, but that is only for the training purposes, not for real war. Here also, same thing. They create this environment, but this is just for testing purposes, and that too doing what? Only for performance testing, not for any other testing. This is only for performance testing, not for any other testing. Okay, not for any other testing. So production like environment means in every which way it looks like production. Hardware, let's say you have used what was the processor? Ultra Space 4 processor you have used over here. Same Ultra Space 4 processor you have to use over here. You have used 32 GB RAM, you have to use 32 GB RAM. You have used whatever the app server, same app server you have to use, like WebLogic, you know, WebLogic version 10G R2 or something like that, same WebLogic. So in every which way, the hardware, software, the number of records, the Java code, the amount of data, in every which way, the environment, the performance environment, this is the performance environment. The performance testing environment should look like production environment. So you see, this is just like production. What does that mean, production like environment? This environment is just like production. They recreated that environment and they given it to you so that you can do the performance testing on that. Now with your, instead of the client, what do you have? You have the virtual users here. Instead of the client, what do you have? You have the virtual users here. These virtual users will be continuously sending the requests, and the requests are not going to the actual production environment. The requests are not going to the actual production environment, but these requests are going where? These requests are going where? Into your own environment, which we call it as performance testing environment. Okay, typically performance testing have their own environment, or there should be. Not that in your company you have it. Sometimes, you might not have it, but I'm just telling you that ideal. What is the ideal case scenario? Ideal case scenario is your performance testing should have its own environment, which is performance testing environment, and that should be the replica of production environment. When I said replica, in every which way, hardware, software, number of records, Java versions, every single thing should be the replica of it. Why it should be the replica? Because when we do the testing, we realize that for login, the response times is what? Let's say is 2 seconds. Okay, the response times is what? 2 seconds. Okay, so this is 2 seconds. Okay, I'm using the mouse to write it, guys, so the handwriting is really shabby. I do agree, but please bear with me on that front. Okay, you did the performance testing on this performance testing environment, and you realize that the response times for login is 2 seconds. Okay, so the response times are affected by various things like the hardware, maybe the software, the number of servers and the connections. The response times could be affected by any one of them. Okay, the response times is affected by the networks. The response times could be affected by the number of records on the database. The response times will be affected by the versioning of the Oracle, or version of the WebLogic servers you have used, or the number of servers you have used. So anything changes, the response times changes. So for example, with this environment, the login response times is 2 seconds, and your production environment is a replica of this. Now you can confidently tell to the client saying that even in the production environment, when the real people are using, the login response times will be still 2 seconds. Still 2 seconds. Now let's assume here you have 2 app servers, but what they have given you is only 1 app server, because this infrastructure is really expensive. Okay, so they said just for the testing purposes, why we should shell out so much money? I'll give you only 1 app server. Now what you realize that the response times for the login is 3 seconds. You have realized the response times for the login is 3 seconds. Now you cannot confidently go to the client that what will be the response times that is experienced by the real users when they use this production environment, because the production environment is now in this case, the production environment is different from the performance testing environment. With 1 app server, this is the response times which is experienced. But with 2 app servers, it could be good. We don't know. It will be better than 3 seconds, but we don't know if it will be less than 2 seconds. If 2 seconds is the SLA, we don't know how much it will be. So we cannot confidently say. Okay, let's say in the production environment, you have 1 million records. Okay, you have only 1 million records. Now, when you're doing the performance testing, let's say there are only 10 records here. 10 records is way too less. Let's say there are only 1,000 records. Okay, there are only 1,000 records. Okay, database contains data, right? Records means data. So now everything else is same. Okay, now here there is 1 million records. Here there is 1,000 records. Now the login, you have done the performance testing. For the login, it is 2 seconds. Again, let's say it is 2 seconds. For the login, again, let's say the response times experienced by you when you did the performance testing is 2 seconds. Now you cannot go confidently tell what it will be when the real users are logging in, and and what will be the response times, because the app server will query this database for the username and password. So picking a username and password from 1 million records will take some time, and picking that username and password from just 1,000 records will take another time. For 1 million record, it might take more time. I'm not saying it will take, but let's say, think about yourself, guys. Okay, you have to go get the book. There are 1,000 books. It will take a lot of time to get the book that you wanted. Let's say there are only 2 books. Then it will take a lot less time to pick up the book that you wanted. Okay, let's say there are 1,000 books and you have to go pick the book. It will take more time. And if there are only 2 books, you have to go get the book that you wanted. It will take less time. Okay, similarly over here, it has to go get the username and password. And getting the username and password from 1 million records will take certain time. Let's say it has taken little more time. It might take little more time. And picking that same username and password with where you have only 1,000 records, it might take less time. I'm not saying that it will, but it might take less time. So that's what it is. So if the data is not same, then you cannot confidently go to the client and say that even in the production environment, the response times experienced by the login will be similar or not. You cannot confidently tell. That is the reason why in every which way, your performance testing environment should look alike like production environment. Should look alike like production environment. Now the next question is, immediately certain students will ask, I have some questions coming in. I'll certainly answer that questions if I can, but let me complete this. Let me come to the logical ending of it. Kumar, you said that building a separate environment is very expensive. Then somebody has to put the data over here. Okay. So all that you're talking about, Kumar. So why don't we do the performance testing in the testing in the production environment itself? Why don't we do it? Okay. I'll tell you why. Let's say this is my banking application. The testing that you are doing is a banking application. What is that? BOFA, Bank of America. BOFA means what? Bank of America. Okay, Bank of America. Okay, we call them as BOFA over here in India. Bank of America is the bank, and this infrastructure, this environment, this production environment belongs to this application test called Bank of America. So if it's an online banking application, what kind of data you might have in the databases, guys? Just give it a guess. If it is an online banking application, this whole architecture belongs to, or this whole environment or infrastructure belongs to the online application. So what kind of data you would have? You would have the data of the customers. Okay, you have the data of the customers. What kind of data we are talking about? What kind of data we are talking about? Can you tell me the data belonging to the customers? You would have the names. Okay, the most important data that you have is the account numbers. Okay, and also the balances. Okay, the amounts, the balances. Okay, so okay, account numbers, the balances, okay, and all that. And once they given access to it, you can do certain things like withdrawal, deposit, and all that. Also remember that. Okay, now let's say this is a production environment, which means that it's a real data with the real balances. Let's say I'll take Millie's name. Okay, so Millie, please don't get offended. I'm taking your example. Okay, let's say our Millie is a millionaire. Okay, she has $2 million in that bank. She has $2 million in the bank. Millie, with your permission, I would like to take your name. Is it okay? Millie? Okay. Thank you, Millie. So our Millie she's a millionaire. Okay. Now she has $2 million in that. Okay. In what? In the Bank of America. So that number will be stored where? That number will be stored there in the database server. Now they have given this environment for our performance testing purposes. Now as a part of performance testing, you are testing a business process called withdrawal. What is that? Withdrawal. You are testing a business process called withdrawal. Okay. So what you are doing as a part of performance testing, you are testing a business process called withdrawal. So you run the test for withdrawal, and the withdrawal amount you set $2 million. Okay, just like, because when you do the testing, you can withdraw any amount, right? This is just the testing. So promptly you have tested it promptly. It went to that bank account and it has withdrawn 2 million rupees, or sorry, $2 million. Now this is the production environment, which means that this is the real amounts held by the real people. Now just for the testing purposes, you went there and you withdraw the 2 million. Now when Melly, the next morning when she opens the account, what is the amount that she will see in her account now? This is the hard-earned money. 2 million is a lot of money. So she opens the account tomorrow morning. Okay. So what is the amount she will see? $0. And that's a real zero, guys. Don't think that, whatever the amount that shows you on your online banking application, that's the real money. Okay, just for the testing purposes, they have given this environment, and you have run the withdrawal script with $2 million. All the money is gone for the customers, and it's a real money gone for the real customers. Okay, so they will never give access to production environment to anybody. Forget about testing. They don't even give an access. Only there will be only certain identified people who will be given access, and they will be kept very, very, very secure. Okay, and that too they will give a very limited access. Okay, they don't even give access to modify the database. Forget about accessing it. They won't give. There will be only certain people who will be given the access, that too just to watch it. Okay, view it. Okay, they will not give access to modify the data. So definitely this is not for testing, because whatever you do over here, it affects the real people. Okay, it affects the real people. So this will never be given for testing. So they have to create the environment for our testing, a new environment for our testing. So that's the reason why they created this environment and given it to us. So this environment is only for performance testing. Nobody else will step over. So Kumar, if it's only for performance testing, so there will be another environment for system testing. Yes, there will be definitely there will be another environment for system testing. So Kumar, there will be another environment for system integration testing. Ideally there should be. Okay, so in that case there should be another environment for development. Yes, there is a dev environment. So typically what I have seen is, there is, for development people, there is a separate environment called dev environment. For system testing people, there is a separate environment they create and give it to the system testing people, which we call it as system testing environment. System integration testing people, the separate environment will be created and given it to them. We used to call them as SIT environment. SIT means not sitting down, system integration testing environment. Similarly, performance testing will be given our own environment, which is called performance testing environment. For dev environment, what they give, they need not have to give the load balancer with 2 app servers and database server. They might give an instance. Instance means a part of web server, a part of app server, and a part of database server, or instance of it. Okay, and for a system testing also, they will give an instance of web server, app server, and database server. It will never be like production environment. It is a part of it, because they just wanted to use it. They are not worried about the performance, how fast, how slow, and all that. And similarly, they have given an instance of this. It will for the SIT. So the beauty of performance testing environment is, at least, ideally it should be like production. But is that happens in the real world? No, because it is really expensive. It's really expensive. Okay. Different people comes out with different strategies, but do understand that it should be, ideally should be like production, but it could be, it might not be in the real world. When you get into the project, it might not be just like production. It will be little scaled down version of production. The idea is, if the performance is better in the scaled down version, it will be definitely better in the production. Okay, that's what it is. Or they use another thing called capacity planning. Capacity planning, that's a different story altogether. So that they come out with some numbers using some formulas, saying that with this scaled down versions, this is the performance. So if it's a scaled up version, what will be the performance? So they will do something like that. They will do some calculations with the formulas, and they will do something like that. But ideally, it should be in the production like environment. Okay, so it took a little bit of time for me to explain what is production like environment. So I hope you have understood this. Now this last 15-20 minutes is very, very important, because whether you are a system tester or system integration tester, performance tester, or dev and development guy, you need to understand that there is an environment which is given to you separately, which is different from production environment. Okay. Any questions here? Yeah, there seems to be some questions. So let me see. So is it possible to create real-time data in that? We can create, you run the withdrawal, create account script, definitely the accounts will be created over here. So whatever you could do from here, you will be able to do it from here. There's no issues. But do remember that you have created an account. The account will be created in your production environment database, in your performance environment database, but not in the production environment database. You have withdrawn some money, you are withdrawing from here. You are depositing some money, you are depositing over here, which is not accessed by the real people. This database is accessed by the real people. So it is not affecting this. This is affecting this. So you can do what all you can do in the real environment, but just that if you are creating the account, it will be created here. If you're deleting the account, it will be deleted here. And since this environment is just used by you, it is not affecting anybody else. You can do whatever you want over here. Okay, so because the application is deployed, whatever the application that is deployed over here, it is deployed over here as well. So Shraddha, is it clear? Does not is
Yeah, it's clear.
thanks Shraddha. So Chaudhary has a question for me, guys. So when you put a question, don't put it as private, because when I have to answer, everybody has to look at that question as well. Because otherwise, if you're posting the question to me in private, the other people can read it and they don't understand, what it is. This is just a earnest request. Please follow it. Okay, thanks Chaudhary. Doesn't it call beta test and production in reality? I don't know. Chaudhary, this is what people usually call it. Beta test is totally different. Please mute yourself, guys. There is some background noise. Please. Shraddha, please mute yourself. Please mute yourself. Shraddha? Yeah, thank you. Sorry, guys. So, you see, beta test, we are completely deviating, Chaudhary. So, as a part of user acceptance test, I don't know if this is what you are referring to. As a part of user acceptance test, there are two tests, alpha test and beta test. Okay, is that what you're referring, Chaudhary? Is that what you're referring? Yes, but that is the test. That's not the environment. Okay, that's not the environment that I'm talking. Okay, so that test, if there is a separate UAT environment, user acceptance testing environment, they can go ahead and do that alpha test, beta test on those environments. Okay, so but that has nothing to do with it. Okay, but you're saying that the beta test will be done in production. Is that what it is, Chaudhary? Your question? You can speak up, Chaudhary, if you have any question, because I'm not able to understand the question clearly. If you have the mic.
Usually, the reality, any of the server, when the users, go through the developmental process, they usually use a beta server and then all test server, and then it goes to the production.
Right.
So that's my question was, do you call this as a beta or the test server when you test it? Because we can't test in the production server.
You can't, right? So
yes. So, but because you were saying the production-like environment, does it mean it's a test server?
It is.
As a performance engineer, we are testing into the test server. Am I correct?
Right. It is still the test servers. Okay.
Okay.
Still the test server, but it should be similar like the production environment. Instead of saying servers, Chaudhary, let's call it as an environment, because server means only one server. But when I'm referring to environment, it's a combination of servers all together. Okay.
Okay.
So,
yes. So this test environment. Okay.
Yeah, the test. It is still the test environment, but this is the performance test environment.
Okay, got it.
Right. So it is used only for performance testing. Okay.
Sure.
PT should be an isolated environment used only for performance testing. That's exactly what I'm telling Phil. So as our Phil has mentioned, Chaudhary, it's an isolated environment. It has nothing to do with production environment, but it is used only for performance testing. Nobody else should step over. A system testing guy cannot come over to you and say that, oh, I have some issues with my environment. Let me use your environment. Typically, they don't allow that. Your manager or your lead, who is a performance testing guy, will not usually allow that. Okay, so you have your own environment which has nothing to do with the production. Okay, Chaudhary, I hope I have answered that question. Okay, to best of my abilities. Yeah. Okay. So is it possible?
I have a question here. Yeah, this is Igram.
Igram, go ahead. Yeah.
Yeah. So if we don't have that, production-like environment, performance test environment, right?
Yeah.
Sometimes if the customer, they don't have a budget, right, to build the performance environment to collect the.
Yeah.
So can we take in QA or UIT, something like that? How we can accommodate this problem?
So it's up to your client, but if they are asking you a suggestion, they should at least give you a scaled down version of it, but they have to tell you how much they have scaled down. Okay, you could use any environment, but they have to tell you how much scale down they have done. Okay, so but typically QA
It does affect,
is
it does
really
affect
scaled down. Okay, so QA or ST is a way too much scaled down environment, and I'm not sure if that is good enough. So if they have something like a pre-pod, usually some people have a pre-production or something like that, and if they can give access to that, but usually they don't give that as well, because before going into the production, they actually put it in the pre-prod and then the production. So you have to talk to them. You know, QA will be way too scaled down, and I'm not sure if that is good enough.
So, I mean, it will affect the response, right?
100%. Don't you think so? You know, how your Pentium 3 will work and how your i7 will work, isn't there a difference?
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
Okay, you take a machine of 4 GB and you take a machine of 8 GB. Don't you think, you know, it will affect the affect the performance of your laptop or desktop? It will certainly.
Yeah, it will affect. I mean, so it will be, I mean, hard with compared to your NFL, right?
Yeah.
That's what I want.
So still you could figure out some issues, but after the performance testing, you cannot tell to the client if these are the response times which is experienced by the real users. But it will help you to identify the bottlenecks, definitely, even in the scaled down version. Okay. So Igram, you just go with, we cannot do, right? I mean, we cannot do much about it if the recently I have done a project. Okay, this was on JMeter, and they didn't had any budget. You don't even believe the budget they had is very JMeter, you know, it's an open source, right? The tool is open source, and I was doing it for just $3,000 the project, you know, $3,000 US. So I'm also cheap. Everything was cheap. They don't wanted to come out with a different environment. And they said, give some environment, you know, which you think, you know, which is better, the best of the environments, and I will do the testing. But I've set the expectations clear to them that whatever the response times that I am reporting, that will be different from what is experienced by the real people. That might be different. So that's the chance that they have to take. From my side, I'll apply the load, I'll look at the fastness, and I'll give it to you. But the environment, I also told them what is the better practice to create something, a separate and isolated one environment, which is at least, you know, if not as good as or similar as production, but you know, give me a scaled down version of half or 25% or something like that, so that at least I have certain ideas to what is going on. Later on, they can do and apply some formulas as a part of capacity planning, and they can come out with some numbers. Okay, but without knowing the how much it is scaled down, if you're doing the testing, then later on it becomes a little difficult to speculate what it will be on the real world. Okay. So, Igram, I hope I have answered that question. Okay. So, any other questions that I have missed, guys, please post it. Any other questions I have missed?
So generally, we have different testing environment for our testing purpose.
100%.
So in that we need to have same processor, same memory for PT as well.
Everything similar, not just the hardware, software, number of records, in every which way it should be similar. Like say you have 1 million records in the database in the production, same 1 million records should be there. Okay, in your performance testing database as well.
To perform PT, yeah. So means when we say virtual users, we create in our PT environment and they perform the testing. So by using virtual users,
this is what is our environment we are talking about. Okay, we are talking, when I speak about environment, web servers, app servers, databases. Virtual users are related to your tool. Instead of this client, you have the virtual users. This is your LoadRunner. Okay, so it has nothing to do with the environment. Okay, the virtual users are coming from the LoadRunner.
Yeah, so in our production like environment, we are creating the same thing, means the same data, so that we can get the real
similar
number.
response times. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Okay, fine.
So Shraddha, instead of clients, we have virtual users, and these virtual users are created by the tool called LoadRunner. LoadRunner is not
Yeah.
part of your performance testing environment. Okay? So LoadRunner is a different tool on a different machine. We will install the LoadRunner, we apply the load. Okay? There is a slide wherein I discuss about the LoadRunner architecture. That's when it will become 100% clear to you, Shraddha. Okay?
Yeah, definitely.
Just hold on to the place. Maybe in a couple of days, I'll reach the point wherein we'll discuss about the LoadRunner architecture. At that point of time, we'll be 100% sure. Okay. So we totally forgot about the break. Okay. So it's just that we are totally engrossed and you really liked it and you never asked for the break, or you're not understanding anything. No, I'm just asking, guys, because it is very important for me that you understand everything that I say, because I do this with lot of efforts. Okay, so guys, do you need a break? You want to take 5 minutes break, or let's continue for 15-20 minutes more? Guys, I want to hear from all of you. We can take a break, right? So we'll take a 5 minutes break. Okay, I totally forgot. Usually what I heard is somewhere after 45 minutes, a person can concentrate only for 45 minutes without getting anxious. So I usually follow that formula. We'll take a 5 minutes break, and after that expect the class to go for 15 more minutes, because we haven't completed the definition of performance testing yet. I wanted to complete the definition of performance testing. Okay, so okay, it's almost done. I'll go back and just review that, whatever it is. Then we'll go through certain slides, and we'll call it a day. Okay, we'll talk about think time and we'll call it a day. Okay, so tomorrow is an important day, guys. We talk about the NFRs. It's an important interview question. A lot of people will ask you, and after that, trust me, we will get into the tool called LoadRunner. Okay, 5 minutes break. We'll be back in 5 minutes, whatever the time that you have. Okay, please note down the time. In 5 minutes, I'll be back. I'm pausing the recording. Once we come back from the break. Wonderful. So let's continue, guys. Let's continue where we left off. Okay, so let's go back now to the definition of performance testing. Okay, here, as I've told you, it's not just a definition, guys. Okay, the screen got hanged up, guys. Just give me a moment. These days, my system is doing this. Just give me a moment. The system has hanged up on me. I hope I have resumed recording. No. Okay, thank you. I've resumed the recording. So the QA or the system testing, guys, wonderful. Yeah, the QA. Thank you, guys. Thank you. So QA or the system testing guys or the system integration testing guys, or simply the functional testing team, some people call them as QA as well. Okay, the QA or the functional testing folks will check the functionality or test the functionality of the application. Okay, and UAT. Yeah, Phil, and UAT as well. So, but okay, as a performance testing as well, as a part of performance testing, we will still check the functionality, but under real world conditions. What is a real world conditions? When multiple, or I would say instead of multiple, I use the word concurrent, because we know what is concurrency. So in the real world conditions, we have concurrent users. So in other words, under the load. Real world conditions means under the load, we'll check the application functionality as well. Okay, so that's what is the purpose of performance testing. And one of the very, very important keynote, guys, the performance testing is required to identify the bottlenecks but not defects. But sometimes we get the defects as well. Sometimes we get the defects in the real world conditions. In the real world conditions, the functionality may not be working properly, and that's when you will have the defects as well. But the whole purpose of performance testing is to identify the bottlenecks. Okay, let's go through some of the important terms in performance testing, guys. Okay, and their acronyms. I think they're called acronyms. Yeah, the short form. I would say the short form. Okay. So performance testing simply called as PT. Going forward, I'll be calling it as PT. Okay. Non-functional testings simply called as NFRs. Okay. Response times, we already know what is the response times. Time taken by the system to respond to a specific request. Time taken by the system to respond to a specific request. We know it's a combination of request, response, and how much time it has taken. Okay. We clearly know what is the response times, guys. For the request to go in, and it will spend certain times on the servers so that the servers processes, and then you get the response back. Okay. LR, load runner. Okay. Throughput. I'll talk about this throughput in detail when we come to the analysis part, guys. But right now, the transactions per second. Per second, how many transactions are happening? That is the throughput. Per second, how many transactions are happening? That's the throughput. In simple words, it's an output. Output of the system. Output of any system is the throughput. If throughput is good, the output is, the system is good, it is able to process your request well. If the throughput is bad, the system is not able to process fast. Okay? Throughput is nothing but the output. The output is nothing but the transactions per second, or it can be also looked into bytes per second. At this point of time, it's not a good thing to talk about throughput more about throughput. When it's the right time, I'll definitely talk about the throughput. Okay, there will be a lot of interview questions around the throughput as well. So for that, you need to clearly understand the difference between throughput and hits per second. Okay, trust me, after the class, after this course, you will definitely understand and you will be able to answer that as well. Okay, so the next important thing is the think time, guys. The next important thing is the think time. Okay, just give me a moment, guys. Just give me a moment. So there is one waiting for the name, guys. Please display the name. Okay, I really wanted to know who it is. Okay, so I just wanted to make sure, the person who is not supposed to attend is, I don't want them to attend. That's it, as simple as that. Okay, so there is one waiting for the name. Please display the name. Please display the name. I would really appreciate if you can display the name. Waiting for the name. It says waiting for the name. Okay, when you join in, if you haven't given the name, it's waiting for the name. You can put the chat window. On the chat window, you can mention your name. Waiting for the name. Okay, I'll let it be there. Okay, tomorrow we'll look into that. So think time. Think time. Okay, watch carefully. Think time. Who can think, guys? Who can think? In the real world, who can think? The human beings can think. Who can think? The human beings can think. Okay, so think time is the time taken by those users, the end users, to think. Okay, I'll tell you simply what it is. Okay, let me go to the application. Let me go to this application. So, okay, so let me go to this application. Okay, now you see, after sending this request, I have sent this request and we got this response. Okay, I have sent this request to the server. Server has sent this response back. Hang on. Let me take the help of the drawing toolbars here. Okay. Okay, guys. So what you have done, from the browser, you have entered this URL. By entering this URL, what are you telling to the servers? Let's say this is your servers. At the back end, there is not one server, but there is more than one server which will be serving your request. What did the server did? The server has given this response to me. What the server has given the response to me. So as soon as you have entered, the request went in. The server has took some time to process and you got the response. So this is the transaction response time. So this is the transaction response time. So request to go in, the server to process, and the server to send this response. The page that you're seeing is the response. That is the transaction response time. Let's say if this request is for the launch, this is the launch, right? So this is the transaction response times for the launch. And once the launch is done, we took some time and we have realized what to do. Okay, now you see, I'm taking some time. Now I've entered the username. Okay, I've entered the password. Now I'm sending the new request. As soon as I click on login, now I'm sending the new request. So whatever the time, I am the user, right? I am the end user. Whatever the time that I have taken on this page, okay, once this page is displayed, whatever the time that I have taken to understand this page, to realize what needs to be done and put the username and password, all that comes under the think time. All that comes under think time. But once I click on the login button, the think time ends. And once I click on the login button, what would happen? Once I click on the login button was here, right? A new request went to the server. The server realized that you need to log in. It has processed the request and sent the response. What is this response? Here is the response. Whatever the page that you're saying, that's the response. Again, there is a transaction response times for the login. So the transaction to go in, the servers to process. Let's say there are 2 servers, both the servers, or let's say there are 3 servers. All the 3 servers process and sends the response back, and you have seen the response. Okay, that's the transaction response times for login. And, sorry, don't disturb, guys. After coming to the logical ending of it, I will definitely take the questions. But if you think you can post the question in the chat window as well. Okay, Kumar, can you mute yourself? That's nothing but transaction, Sumati. So Kumar, can you mute yourself, please? Kumar, can you mute yourself?
Yes, sure.
Yeah, thank you, Kumar. Okay, thank you, Kumar. Okay. So the request went in and you get the response. Okay, so this page is displayed, and once this page is displayed, again as an end user, you're taking a little bit of time. Once the page is displayed, your think time has started, and you're thinking as to what needs to be done. Then you realize that, oh, I'll go book the flights. Then you will be thinking as to what button should I click to book the flights. Then you realize that this is the button that I have to click. So then you will go ahead and click on it. And whatever the time that you have taken to think as to what needs to be done, and not only think, move the mouse and go there, and if it requires to be entered, you will enter, or if it requires to be clicked, you will click. So whatever the time that has taken on the page, all that is the think time. And now as soon as I click on the flight buttons, your think time is ended. Now there is one more transaction that is went in, and the server has understood and is processed, and you are able to see the response as well. That's the transaction response times. So the think time and transaction response times happen alternatively. So think time, transaction response time. Think time, transaction response times. It happens alternatively. If you still didn't understood, we'll go through the slides. And still didn't understood, there is one more slide, you will totally understand. Okay, so the same thing I'm explaining on the slides. Okay, you see what is the think time? Think time is the time taken by the real user, in our case Mark, wait between 2 different actions, or in other words 2 different transactions. We have already defined a term called transaction. So instead of saying actions, I would use the term called transaction. So the wait between 2 different transactions, or in other words, will wait and think between 2 different transactions. You see, he will wait and think what needs to be done between 2 different transactions, or simply the time taken by the users between 2 different transactions is nothing but the think time. Okay, the time taken between 2 different transactions is nothing but the think time. I need not have to say the real users, because we can simulate the same thing in the virtual user world as well. So let me take away the word called real user. By definition, it usually is applicable to the virtual users. So to be on the safe side, let's just call it as the users. Let's call it as the users. Okay. So that I can explain, I have actually put that, but it will change the definition a little bit. Okay, so think time is the time taken by the users. User waits between 2 different transactions, guys. Wait between 2 different transactions. Okay, let's see the example. I've seen. There are some comments coming in. I'll take those comments once I've come to the logical ending of it. Okay, so you see here Mark has entered the username and entered the password on this Web2 server. Okay, login. Okay, so now he has logged in. Okay, he has clicked in and he has logged in. Now he got this page. You see, After login, he has got this page. Now he's thinking where to click, where to click. So that is nothing but the think time. After login and the home page is loaded, Mark is thinking to where to click. This is the think time. Here think timer starts. Okay. So you see, once the page is loaded, after entering the username password, once this page is loaded, as soon as the page is loaded, your think timer has started. Okay. Your think timer has started. Now, after some time, Mark has decided that he will click on the flight button. As soon as he clicks on the flight button, this page will be displayed. As soon as he clicks on the flight button, the moment he clicks on the flight button, the think timer stops. And here, he took 6 seconds for Mark to realize. After the page is loaded, it took 6 seconds for Mark to go and hit on the flight buttons. So after the page is loaded, after this page is loaded, it took 6 seconds for Mark to go and click on that. That 6 seconds wherein he is not doing anything on this application, that 6 seconds is the think time. That 6 seconds is the think time, and that 6 seconds is the time between two different transactions. Okay, that's the think time, guys. Okay, this time which he spends not doing anything on the system, that's the think time. He's not doing anything on the system, that's the think time. Okay, think time might change. Note guys, think time may change when some users, like new advanced users, familiar. When I said new advanced users are the ones which are familiar with the application or who comes there regularly. Okay, so operates the same transactions. Okay, user operates the same transaction. Forget about this note. Okay, so this needs to be changed. Okay, so yeah, okay, the think time may change when the other new or advanced user familiar with the application. Forget about this note, guys. The note does not make sense, but let me explain this. Okay, so let's go to Amazon. Okay, let's go to Amazon website. You are using the Amazon website. Let's say a person called Mark is using the Amazon website every day. For him, the think times will be less because as soon as the page loads, he knows where to go, which link to click to get to where. Okay, but some person like Stacy who doesn't go to Amazon website every day, the think time will be more for them because they are not familiar with the application. Okay, this needs to be changed, guys. Okay, the note needs to be changed. It's not properly articulated. Okay, the thing which I wanted to put here is think time. Okay, may change from person to person. Or instead of saying person, I would say user to user. Think time may change from user to user. Okay, for the same application. Okay, for the same application. Even though they are using for the same application, some users think time will be less, some users think time will be more, because some person who comes to that application every day, they know what to do, where to find what and all that. So for them, the think times will be less. And some people who are new to that application, for them to get a feel for the application, to understand what it is and what needs to be done, the think times will be more. Okay, so think times for some users will be less, even though we are talking about the same application, which is Amazon.com. So the users who are novice, who are new to that, will take more think times, and the users who goes there every day, they have less think time. So think time will change from person to person or user to user. But is there an industry standard think time? Yes, it is 10 seconds. Is there an industry standard think time? Yes, it is 10 seconds. The 10 seconds is the industry standard think time. Okay. Now I'll talk about the difference. After this, I'll take all the questions, guys. Now you will get absolute clarity as to what is think time and what is transaction response times. Okay. Some people have already asked this question. So this happens all the time. So I have prepared a single slide. This will totally clear all your doubts. Okay. Now you say this is your Facebook. Let's say this is your architecture for the Facebook, wherein you have web server, app server, database server. You said www.facebook.com. The request went to the server, web server, and we know this web server can can serve all the static pages or the static requests, but for all the dynamic content, it will go to the app server. App server will send the response back. Now web server will combine all the static content and the dynamic content, and it will send the response back to the client. Now you'll be able to see the home page of the Facebook. So let's say this has taken 2 seconds. 2 seconds for what? The transaction to start from here, go to the web server process the request, go to the app server process the request, then send it back, and then finally the client. So let's say let's call this transaction as launch transaction. Isn't this a transaction? Yes, this is a transaction. So transaction is happening between whom? Client and servers. So this is for the launch. So let me name it as launch transaction. Let's assume it has taken how many seconds? 2 seconds. So launch has taken 2 seconds. Launch has taken 2 seconds. Now the user over here, now let's say Mark is using this application. Now the user over here is new to Facebook. He is thinking as to what needs to be done, and then he realized that he needs to log in. Then he has to recollect what is his username and password, and finally he has to go to this field and enter the username, go to the field, enter the password, and for all this, Mark has took how much time? Let's say it's 10 seconds. For doing all this, let's say Mark has taken 10 seconds. That 10 seconds is the think time. So the think time is the time taken by the users, and the response time, the transaction response times, is the time taken by the servers. Transaction response time is the time taken by the servers, which is 2 seconds. And the think time is the time taken by the users. How much in this? In our case, 10 seconds. After 10 seconds, which means that you would have clicked on the login request. Once he clicks on the login request, okay, the new request went to the web server. The web server will take care of the static content. For the remaining stuff, it will send for the app server. Here it has to query the database because it has to check if the username and password is correct. So it has queried the database. The database has sent the results to the app server. Then it will combine that query results with the dynamic content and send it to the web server. Web server will combine all the dynamic content which the app server has given and the static content it has, and finally you are seeing the wall page. And for all of that, let's say it has taken 2.5 seconds. That 2.5 seconds, let's call this transaction as a login transaction, and 2.5 seconds is for the login transaction, and this is the transaction response times for the login. And it is taken by the user or the servers? It is taken by the servers. One server or all the servers? All the servers. How much time? 2.5 seconds in our case. So the login transaction is 2.5 seconds. Now after that, again Mark will take certain time to realize what is the wall and what he needs to do and all that. He decided to put a post on it, so he started working on it. For all that, it has taken 7 seconds. So 7 seconds is the think time which is taken by the client or which is by the Mark. So that's the think time. Again, he will send the next one. So think time, transaction response times, and think time. Transaction response time, think time. Transaction response time, think time. This is what happens in the real world. So that's what we have to simulate in our performance testing world as well. So this is what it is, guys. So this is where we will end today. There is one more topic, but I would like to take it tomorrow only. So this is where I have to end. This is where I wanted to end today because I have extended more than required by 15 minutes. Okay, so I'll not stop the recording right away. I'll have the recording continue so that I'll take all the questions and all that you have. So any questions, any issues, anything that you have? Okay, I missed certain things in the chat window. Let's see something. If I missed, I've posted. Krishna Prasad said think time is once the transaction is done, then the time to take where to navigate. Yes, Krishna Prasad. Now I hope after this picture, Krishna Prasad, that is Krishna, is it clear? After the last slide, Krishna. Okay, so if you have any questions, you can post it, not an issue. But after this last slide, I don't think I need to answer that question. That's what I felt. Okay, so Phil says transaction time is what the machines are doing. Think time is what the humans are doing. Wonderful, Phil. That's exactly what I've said in the last slide. Yes, yeah. Shraddha, think time and response time is same? No, Shraddha, no. I hope, Shraddha, now it is absolutely clear to you. Okay, after the last slide. Phil says, think time is what the real user does when not acting on the application, reading, drinking coffee, etc. Okay, Phil. Yeah, I get it. Yeah. Okay, so there are 3 people, Sumati and Shraddha and Krishna Prasad. After this last slide, is it absolutely clear to you what is the difference between transaction response times and the think time? Because it's an important interview question. If you're going as a 2 years experience, or you're going as a, if you're going as a fresher, this is 100% interview question. Okay, they will definitely ask you what is the difference between think time and transaction response times. Phil, go ahead. You can use your mic if you want it.
Yes, you mentioned that the industrial standard for think time is 10 seconds.
Yes.
Doesn't that seem like quite a lot when you have a power user or someone that's familiar with the application? Or is that just an average?
It's an average. So for others, you can ignore what I'm doing. Okay. So this is just for the Phil, because you might get overwhelmed here. But if you understand, it's okay for others. So this is what we will do in the real world, Phil. So when we create the scripts, right? So we will go to the runtime settings, and the think time usually, even though in the script you will put it as 10 seconds, but for the usage,
do a random.
What you will do.
Yes.
Okay, which means that it takes care of all the power users, the other users, the novice users and all that. Okay, this is the good practice. But in the script, yes, you are supposed to put 10 seconds.
Okay.
Okay, yeah, sounds good.
Yes, and I have one other question. When you talk about the production environment and the performance environment, it's not linear. Like if the performance environment has 2 servers and is able to handle, let's say, 1,000 concurrent users, you can't really say that the production environment, let's say, has 4 servers. You can't just double that and say, oh, the production environment should be able to handle 2,000 users.
No, that's not how it works. There is an activity called capacity planning.
Yes.
Okay, there is an activity called capacity planning. This is a capacity planning team people have. So they will do. There are some certain formulas which they will come out. I never got into capacity planning, but it's not linear as you said. It's definitely not linear.
Yes.
Okay, and
yeah. So what?
Yeah. Sorry, Phil. Go ahead.
Oh, okay. So what I'm familiar with, we have in my company, we have our performance or stage environment set up as 75% of production. So when our mandate is it passes in stage, we have strong confidence that it will pass in, it will be fine in production.
Right. That's exactly what all the people would do as well.
Yes.
Yeah. So your performance testing environment usually will be a scaled down environment of production. But how much scale down you have? I like this number, 75%. You see, you clearly know how much it has scaled down with 75%. Now, if it works good, performance is good with 75%, definitely now you know that it will be better than that. If not worse. If not same, it could be better than that. So that's the confidence you would have.
Correct.
Yeah. So that's what it is. Yeah. So the same thing I have mentioned in the class as well, right? Or did I mention something else?
No, you said it. I just wanted to just verify. Yes.
Yeah, wonderful. And at this juncture, I wanted to come out with one more thing as well, guys. So this is a nice PPT I have created. This is for all of them who wants to look at it. Okay. So the session is getting still recorded. So this is a nice PPT I have created. So now you're a performance tester, let's assume. Okay, what is your ladder looks like? Okay, in your real world. Okay, so you're a performance tester at this point of time. Okay, career path. I should say it's a career path. So now the next thing is you should plan for becoming a performance test lead. You should plan for becoming a performance test lead. Okay, then a performance engineer. Okay, then a system architect is wonderful, but here I've missed one point here. You can be as a part of capacity planning team. Okay, this is where capacity planning comes into picture. Okay, so this This is the capacity planning. Okay. So after capacity planning, you can be a system engineer, system architect, and then a senior system architect. Then if you're lucky, this is a dream for all of them, a chief technical officer or a CTO of a company. So this is how you can plan your career if you're taking performance testing as seriously and you wanted to become a performance tester. You start with a performance tester, then you become a lead, then you should plan to get an engineer. This jump is really, really difficult. Okay, really, really difficult. So then a capacity planning team, which is not that difficult. I think it's pretty simple. Then the system architect, which is little difficult, this jump. And then with experience, you'll become a senior system architect or the main system architect and all that. And finally, if you plan your career well, you can become a chief technical officer as well. So this is the career path that you should plan to. Okay. So I totally, I thought, since we are talking about capacity planning, I thought, I should tell this over here. Okay. So yeah, this is what it is. I hope now you know what your future looks like. Yeah. Somebody wants to speak. Yes, please.
I'm sorry, I got one more quick question. You mentioned performance testing and load testing, with load testing being peak levels.
Yeah.
What is meant by X2 and X3 performance testing? Like when you run an X2 of a performance test.
So honestly speaking, I haven't heard this X2 and X3. Is this a generic term or the term which is specific to your project?
No, I've heard it at different companies.
Yeah, maybe that is Ikram. I think 2 times production load and 3 times production load.
Okay.
Ring.
So 2 times load or production environment?
Production load. I mean, if you have like 10, I mean, 100 or
yeah, that's right.
Users,
it's
right?
like twice the load
Production.
and thrice the load. Yeah.
Okay, twice the load and twice the environment, both of them, right?
Yeah. If you want to increase the load by, I mean, if you want to double the load, that's like, that's like cross to not X2.
Yes, I understand. I know what the X means, but when would you use that and for what reason?
Twice the load and twice the production environment as well. But environment remains the same. Based on that, I'll be able to, with my knowledge, I'll be able to. So environment remains the same. Okay. So you're not increasing the environment, but you're just increasing the load once you have the load.
Yes.
Okay. So most likely, I'm just giving, there is something called scalability. Okay. We already have a test called scalability test. So it could be a part of scalability test. I'm just giving it a guess, Phil, because I haven't, at least, when I was doing, haven't heard about it. So it could be a part of scalability test or it could be part of stress test. Okay. I'm just giving it a guess, but I could be totally wrong here. Okay. So stress test is definitely done with 3 times the load. That's what I will start with 3x load stress test. Okay. And scalability, I'll start with whatever the number that they gave me. But usually stress test, I'll go with 3x or x3 or 3x. Okay. And if you're still not able to break it, then I'll go with 5x load. Okay. But so this X2 test could be a part of scalability test because with twice the load, typically it might not break. So it could be a scalability test. But if you're going with 3x, it could be a part of the stress test. This is just my gut feeling. Okay. So Rupa is already doing it and it's a part of scalability test. Phil. Okay. So wonderful. Okay, my guess is correct. So Rupa has confirmed that. So it's a part of scalability test. So Igram, is that? I mean, is that what you do? I mean, Rakesh and Igram, you're already working in the industry. So is that what you would do as well as in your company? Is a part of scalability test the X2 test? Both Igram and Rakesh, I'm speaking because I got responses from you, both of you.
Yeah, this is Ikram. So once you have a load test, right? If you have 1,000 users load test.
Okay.
And then we'll ask you like 2 times load, right? Double of that.
Yeah.
The kind of scalability test.
It's a scalability test. Okay. So Phil, 2 people have confirmed it. So definitely, I think it's a part of scalability test. So instead of giving the requirements, if you don't get probably the NFRs for scalability NFRs, then we can go ahead and do the 2x test.
Okay, sounds good.
Sounds good. Okay. Okay. So wonderful. So I'll send these running notes for you today. And there is one slide which I said I'll send it across to you, which is the architecture diagram. And certain students have requested for the think time slide as well. I'll send these 3 from my side. Okay. So thank you guys. If you have any questions, I can continue to stay back. Else we will call it a day. And I hope you have enjoyed today's class and learned a lot. Some people are already working, but I think they also got to learn a few things. Okay.
Kumar, one last question. So it's gonna always be at the same starting time
Yes.
as today, right?
Yesterday, yes. Throughout the course, for the next 3 weeks or 4 weeks or 5 weeks that we are going, it will be the same exact time. So no difference.
Perfect. Thank you.
Yep. So again, guys, please watch out for your WhatsApp group. Any questions, post it over there. I will immediately respond. Or you send it to me. Any message, I'll send it. I'll reply back to you. But please join at the same time using the same link. Okay. Same time using the same link. I'm also planning not to change the link because once I've changed the link and there's so much confusion among all the people. Even though I've clearly sent out an email, there was 2 things. One is regarding the timings and with the link. So there was little confusion. So with the same timings, because in the US the timings have changed. Now I don't think it will change for the next 6 months or whatever. So the timings will be same and everything will be same. So yeah. So Shiva, please message me, and all the new students, Shiva and Kausalya and others, please give me a WhatsApp message on this or call me, please. Okay, 801-995-2427. Please call me. Please call me so that we'll discuss further. Okay, as to what is your requirements and how we can take it forward. So I think it was Kaushalya, Shavani, and Shiva. Please do that. Okay, all the new students. Thank you, guys. Have a good day and see you tomorrow at the same time with the same link. Okay? And anything that you want, you can send out a message like a slide, a piece of slide or something. You can put a message. Yes. And one more thing. Yesterday we have celebrated Diwali, but for some people today is the Diwali. So for all those people, happy Diwali. Happy Diwali. Enjoy. Be safe. Don't. When you're playing with the firecrackers, please be safe. Anything you wanted to speak, you can speak. Rakesh? Sujata?
No, I'm good.
You good? Rakesh? Okay. Yeah.
Thanks, everyone. Bye.
Thanks, Rakesh. So, Sujata, you wanted to speak because I've seen you unmuted?
No, I'll discuss offline. I wanted to discuss an SAP.
Okay. So from my side, let me make a quick note of it. Think time slides, architectures, and running notes. And obviously recorded video. Okay, so this is what I will send you. Okay, guys, so we'll call it a day. Anybody wants to speak over here?